we began this journey. I said, let's go. He did last second motion to my body and say, I could take you to your body. And when I looked down at the body, it did not look even okay. It looked terrible. And I knew that I didn't want to go back to my body.
Welcome, Vinney. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Laura. It's my pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. For those who are watching, could you give a brief background and then take us into the near-death experience and what you experienced through that?
Yeah, back in 2003, I was found dead in a Dairy Queen bathroom, and I was bagged up and taken on my way to the medical examiner when a rookie medic, broke protocols, and that's kind of what starts my story, and it does start all right there, where I'd taken a supplement, me and my best friend, and this supplement it was a concentrated form that we had never seen before. And it was about 20 times stronger than any that we had ever used before. And we weren't aware of that concentration. So we took our normal dosage, which was a liquid bottle cap, and it was like taking 20 times what we normally would. So we both felt ill immediately. And we went down to the Dairy Queen. It was the closest restaurant to his house, and barely made it in there. I stumbled into the bathroom. He later stumbled in and collapsed on one of the dining booths. And since I was in the bathroom, the door was locked. I passed out on the ground there, and I began to aspirate or breathe in your own vomit. And that's what did me in, was aspirating my own stomach contents. Whereas my buddy, he ended up vomiting all over a booth, and the manager of the restaurant, he came out and saw what was going on. He called 911. They got an ambulance there and they took him away, and he was fine. They did keep him overnight and pump his stomach, but he ended up being just fine. But with me, no one had found me yet. I was still in that bathroom. I was not breathing. And it was about an hour after my buddy had been taken away in his ambulance, the manager of the restaurant did open that bathroom for another customer. And that's when he saw this dead body on the ground. They called 911 a second time that day, and a second medical team came out to assist. And as they got there, it was a 3-man crew. So there was two veteran medics, and then there was a rookie medic. And as they were sitting there working on this dead body, I was watching from above. I was watching all of it, and I could hear the thoughts of everyone in the restaurant. I could actually hear the thoughts of the rookie, and I could hear him thinking, why are we giving up so easy? Why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? It's like he was going through all the different trainings he had just gone through and asking himself, why aren't we trying everything? To the veterans' credit, the body was cold when they found it. It was cold to the touch. So there wasn't a lot of options at that point. They did do CPR. They did tried to put air into the lungs so that oxygen could get in, and nothing worked. So they did pronounce the body DOA, or dead on arrival, and they did give a time of death, and they went ahead and bagged this body into a bright body bag, and they were strapping it all down. And again, this rookie, he kept thinking, like, this can't be it for this guy. There has to be more for him. And he wasn't letting go with his thoughts, but yet he wasn't saying anything either. Well, they did end up bagging the body. They put it in the back of the ambulance, and they told the rookie to stay in the back of the ambulance and babysit this body while these two veterans went and got paperwork filled out with witnesses and the manager of the restaurant. Anybody who saw anything, they wanted witness statements. Now, as this is all happening, This rookie is sitting in the back of the ambulance, and he is starting to get a little negative on himself. Like, why didn't you speak up to these guys? You're letting yourself be a pushover. You're going to be working with them for forever. You want to stand up and be a strong voice, and he didn't. Um, Fast forward, a few minutes later they get done with all the witness statements. They come and they get into the ambulance and they're leaving the scene. And as they leave the scene, I notice that I can leave with them. I didn't know though that what I'd been watching was me. I thought for sure that's not possible because me was up here watching everything, and wherever me is not that dead body down there. So I watched as they left the scene, and I felt terrible for this dead guy, whoever he was. I felt terrible for him. And I watched this rookie medic. He started somewhat of a prayer, and he was praying to God to, help this soul of this person. And in the midst of that, he was again thinking, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have spoke up. And out of nowhere, he starts to glow. He physically started to glow around his heart area. And as that glow started to happen, I heard really loud, "This one's not dead." And I heard the voice speak over me, like it spoke from behind me and over me. And I turned around to see who was there. I couldn't see anything. I just saw all darkness except for what I was watching, and that was this scene. And I saw the rookie hear the message and receive it, but then right away I heard heard his voice say, "That's just your imagination." And then it went a few feet, a few hundred feet further down the road, and this rookie started to glow even brighter. And for a second time, that voice said, "This one's not dead." And with the second notice, this rookie, he jumped into action. He acted like the first one was his imagination, but the second one he knew was not his imagination. He went ahead, he undid straps on the body so he could feel around for a pulse. He felt around the neck, he felt around the chest, he felt around the arm. He was not feeling a pulse anywhere. And he knew to go to a deeper area of the body where it's on the inside of the thigh to feel for a pulse there. And so he had to undo more straps on the body, and then he felt down on the thigh. When he pushed down to feel for a pulse, he made physical contact with the femur bone in the leg. And when he did, I felt someone shock me. Like they shocked me. Like I jumped. And I was watching him, and I watched him jump simultaneously. So something happened. Later, I got a chance to talk it over with him. He didn't remember the spark he didn't remember the shock. It felt like an electrical shock. What he did feel is what he said was a pulse of energy. And he said from that pulse, that was enough for him to give himself the okay to try to resuscitate the body. So he went ahead and began resuscitation. He force-fed oxygen into the lungs. He hooked up a defib machine on the body, and then he charged the body with no heartbeat the first time. The second time he got a single heartbeat, and then the third time he got a steady heartbeat. And that to me is one of the greatest miracles of all this, is that this rookie would listen to his intuition, listen to a message outside of himself, that this one wasn't all the way dead. And he was able to bring my heart back. Now, at this point, another miracle was that they were taking the body to the medical examiner, and the route that they were driving was driving them right past like 4 hospitals. But the first and the closest hospital that they were going to be driving by, that's the one that they were in front of when the heart started. So they were able to, beeline directly over to the hospital and get the body turned into the professionals where they could continue to work with it. While I was watching all of this, the ambulance pulls in very fast. They open up the back doors. They pull the body out. They are, asking all these questions to the rookie and to the other medics. And then I watched them lift the body and transfer it from the medical gurney over to the medical bed for the hospital. And as they did this, I watched the body go into a full seizure. And it was not pretty at all. It was already very disgusting, the body. It did not look even human. It was very, very purple and yellow in the skin, in the cheeks. And the neck had swollen really wide past its jaw. So it didn't even look like me at all. But I watched as this body went into a seizure. I felt more empathy for whoever this was. I felt sadness for them. And then I saw that they had to strap the arms and the legs down so that they could work on the body even while it was in a full seizure. And that's when they got to the left arm, they strapped it down. I looked down and I could feel my left arm where I was sitting up here watching this whole thing from above. I felt someone strapping my left arm down. So I looked down to see my left arm, and what I saw was the left arm of the body, and I saw the strap that they were putting on it. And that completely freaked me out. I went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour with my mind. I went from just observing something to realizing that everything I'd been observing was me. And I had no freaking idea. And so one of the first thoughts I had was, how could I be so dumb? How could I be so stupid or ignorant that I had no idea that what I was watching was my own death? And that was a terrible feeling. And the next thought I had was, if I'm so dumb, why do I even exist? And I started to see every negative thing that I ever did in my life. And this was my life review per se. And it didn't last very long, but I did see and experience every bad thing I ever did. But I also experienced it from those who I did it to. So if I was mean to my brother, I would see myself being mean to my brother. Then I would see his take on it, like how it affected him. And it sure changed me and how I saw myself. And I got to the end of all that. And again, I thought this thought, if this is all that I am, why do I exist? Why do I even exist if this is all that I am? And that's when I felt this overwhelming waterfall of love. It just poured over me. It gushed over me. And then very swiftly, I saw every good thing that I ever did. And I saw it from both perspective of me and those who I did it for. And I got to see that I wasn't such a bad guy, that there was a lot of good that I did, and that there was times I was doing good without even knowing I was doing good. And it gave me hope. It gave me solace that I was worth existing. I was worth being. And in the midst of all this, I could recognize that this love, this unconditional love that was being poured on me from behind. So I turned around, and as I turned around to see where all this love was pouring on me, I see this godlike figure standing there, like just larger than life, very, very powerful, and energy flowing around him, almost like there's fans on him. And he's dressed all in white. He's wearing like this white robe. He's got a white beard that was fairly long, and white hair that was also fairly long. And I'm just in awe. And all I can think is, oh, this is God. And as soon as I thought that, he answered me in his voice, but he answered me in my mind without using his mouth. He said, "No, son, I'm not God." And my follow-up was like, what? Who could he be then if he's not God? And so, being raised Christian, I asked, are you Christ? Are you Jesus? And he said, no, son, I'm not Jesus. And I asked him, well, then, who are you? And he explained that he is my guide. He was there to help me go wherever I want to go. If I want to go back to my body, he'd help me do that. If I want to move on and go with him, he could take me home. He could also take me anywhere in the universe, really. And that's when the gears and the wheels in motion started to move in my mind. And I thought about for a second, like anywhere in the universe, that's something right there. And the next thing I can think is, I just want to find where that love's coming from. That's all I can feel. I just want to find where that love is coming from. So I asked him, I said, this love that you're pouring on me, it's so overwhelming. Where is that coming from? Can I go there? And he explained that yes, that we can go there, that that's my home, that's his home, and that he can take me to my home. So we began this journey. I said, let's go. He did, last second motion to my body and say, I could take you to your body. And when I looked down at the body, it did not look even okay. It looked terrible. And I knew that I didn't want to go back to my body. So I did begin my journey with him. He, right off the bat, told me that the most important thing for me to learn is that authenticity, or being authentic, is the most powerful vibration on earth. And that when you can be authentic, when you can be who you know you are, you're not trying to pretend to be anything else, and you're not trying to cover up anything. You're able to be your most vulnerable, authentic self. And I thought I was authentic. I really did. And my guide, he showed me how I had a different mask that I would wear for everyone, whether I was in college, or if I was playing, rugby with some rugby mates, or if I was, doing construction, because I did construction quite a bit back then, or if I was on a movie set. I used to work TV and movie sets quite a bit. And, any one of these places, I put on a different mask. And he showed me how I had a different mask, a distinguished, separate mask for each one of these groups. And then within the group, I had different masks. So I didn't like that. I didn't like that he was showing me that I had so many false selves, and that inside all these false personas, there was an authentic, real person that I was always trying to hide. So he, at first, he kind of separated me from all of that energy of thinking about it. And I really settled into who I really am. And he helped me essentially bring myself back to who I was when I was 5 years old. Because when I was 5 years old, I was very, very authentic. I would not lie or sugarcoat anything. I was just a kind little kid, a kind little child. So he brought me back to that persona of who I was when I was 5 years old. And he let me start building myself back at that point. And that's when he showed me the reason that we even come to Earth is not just for the love, for loving each other and finding love, but we come to Earth because we are built for learning. Our soul is built for learning, and we can't learn when we're in the close proximity of our Creator. It's nearly impossible. He helped me understand that when we're with our Creator, we love our Creator so much that anything that the Creator wants, we want. It's just instant. The second that the Creator has a desire, that's the very second that the desire is fulfilled. Like the desire is created and fulfilled. And it's hard for us to be in that place and learn who we really are. So we had to leave home. And not only did we have to leave home, we had to wash ourselves in a veil of forgetfulness. Because the power of the love of our Creator is so strong that even remembering that love would highly impact our choices every single day. So I was shown that I chose to, step through that veil of forgetfulness and come to Earth for Earth life. And that Earth is like a grad school. It's a school that's kind of hard to get into, but once you get in, you gain a lot. Even if you fail and fall flat on your face, you are gaining a world of information, a universe of information by that single life. And that there is a long line of souls that want to get in here. They want terribly to get into Earth life, but they can't. They can't cut the mustard. They've got far more proving to do before they can come in here. And that's when my guide, he gave me his name. He said that when he was alive, people who loved him called him Drake. And so I began to refer to him as Drake at this point. And that's when Drake showed me that, in the midst of all this, loving everyone is one of the most important things for us to learn how to do. And that as we can learn to love everyone, we activate a voice inside of us. And this is a God voice or an intuition voice. But this intuition, it activates by loving others. And as we do that, loving others, the intuition turns on. And now we have like a direct connection with Creator or God inside of us. And that we can be really good stewards of that, or we can be horrible stewards of that. And when we are loving each other, we are being good stewards of that. And that's when he showed me that part of loving everyone is to not have any prejudice for anyone, like no prejudice. And I told him, I said, I don't have any prejudice. I'm one of the probably maybe a few in my friend group that I felt like I had zero prejudice. And that's when he said, well, how do you feel about prejudiced people then? And that's when I went off. I had a lot to say that was not positive about prejudiced people. And finally, when I got done, Drake, he looked at me and said, are you done? And I said, yes. And he said, is that it? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I need you to know that by you hating prejudiced people, you are prejudice. And that blew my mind. I had never conceived of something like this before. That the very idea of something that I didn't like was something that I was participating in as I was against prejudiced people. I myself had become prejudiced. So Drake helped me release myself of that. He helped me see, I had one friend that was, semi-prejudiced for one classification of humanity. And he helped me see why that friend was that way. He also helped me see that if someone who met that classification of what he was prejudiced towards had come up to him and had loved him, it would have changed him and it would have healed him of his prejudice. That we can never stamp out prejudice by being anti-prejudice, because we are growing it by being anti. But what we can do is we can bring the resolution of love, loving all, in all their colors, creeds, cultures, and races. When we can bring a love like that loves all, we are healing the world of the prejudice. And we are bringing forward a new page in Earth's story. And, it was a very beautiful part of my experience. But I felt that as I struggled with that prejudice, I actually had slowed down. I had felt my progress like slowing down. And then as I embraced it and I cleansed myself of it, I was able to accelerate back up and get back to normal speed. But my guide, Drake, at that point, he helped me understand that, you know, we have a sacred journey coming into these clay jars, into these sacred temples of these bodies. We have a sacred journey to come into these, experience life, and along that life, learn to use the power of creation, which is our thoughts. Because our thoughts are the power of our creation. And then what we think, what the mind can think, what the brain can conceive, the universe will help achieve. Like we start first with a thought, and if we keep thinking it and we start speaking about it, it will actually make this thing happen. And that's for good or for bad. So it's very important that we as individuals, that we choose to have positive thoughts. And if we're having negative thoughts, we resolve those negative thoughts, we release those negative thoughts, and we embrace the positive ones. Because those positive thoughts can be absolutely life-saving. They can. Because the positive thoughts bring about the positive things. And that's the magic of using our magic wands, which is our thoughts. And that's when Drake, he showed me that, in this process of our thoughts being so powerful, it's really important for us to avoid negative influences. I mean, the same as it's important to avoid negative thoughts, it's important to avoid negative influences. And he showed me how many things out in the world are negative influences on our bodies. And, both pharmaceutical negative influences, poison or carcinogenic substances that are harmful for our bodies, but also like toxic entertainment, toxic music. These things are not good for our souls, and that we need to avoid these things. Yes, sometimes these things are giving us a voice where we haven't given ourselves a voice, but we need to cleanse ourselves of the negative voice and let that go. Let it be free, and not think that we need to own even our own negative energy. We can release it, if that makes sense. In that process, Drake, he showed me that, yes, as we avoid negative influences, we get better control on our own destiny, on our own path, our own power. But there is a vital importance of allowing negative to exist. And that's when, one of my greatest role models growing up was my uncle. And he was a self-proclaimed atheist or agnostic. He did not believe that there could be a God if children suffered the way they did on earth, if the terrible things happen the way they do on earth. He didn't believe there could be a real God, because a real God would step in and be the superhero and stop these things. And in the midst of all this, Drake helped me understand that there is purpose even in evil. That if you remove the option to do bad or to do evil, you might as well have never left heaven. And we left heaven so that we could make a choice. And one of the reasons why earth life is so valuable to our souls is because the good is so good and the bad is so bad. That duality is so broad. It's more broad than any other universe, any other planet, any other galaxy. That duality to teach us to give us a choice. It allows us to go very, very deep into the light or very, very deep into the dark. And that's what the soul wants to do, to learn, is go into one or the other. And that even evil itself has to be an option for the souls to grow, for the souls to learn. And that's when Drake taught me. But even though there's evil, what people don't realize is that we're all one, and that when once someone does evil, one finger does evil to another finger, it's just hurting the self. That we cannot hurt or harm anyone else without hurting or harming ourselves. That all of us are fingers on God's hands, every single one of us. Every bit of creation is connected to our Creator. And even as we abuse our earth, as we abuse the minerals, the plants, the trees, we are only abusing ourselves. We cannot do it where we only abuse something else. And in all forms of this as a possibility, we harm ourselves as much, if not more, than we harm those who we're going after. Now, at this point, I'm losing my mind. I'm thinking, like, this is sure taking a long time. I had to learn a lot to get to where I was. And that's when I saw this beautiful mist. And it looked like a glowing cloud with what looked like a gigantic planet in the middle of it. And as we got closer and closer and closer, I could see that this mist was built of these beautiful large orbs. And I say orb because it's like a sphere or an orb, but they were opalescent or pearlescent. They looked like these really big pearls, like larger than a human. And as we got closer and closer to this mist of these pearls, I could see that inside the pearls were souls, and that the souls were just cleansing themselves of the last little bit of dirt that they needed to release to be able to get into heaven. And one particular pearl that Drake let me see into was the pearl of being I saw this older man dressed in probably like late 1800s, early 1900s attire. And he had been victimized or betrayed by his son. And in his mind or in his consciousness, he was seeing his son's face, and he was speaking in Italian and just really releasing on him just what kind of a baciagalup and all these things that he was saying in Italian. And, for two reasons I knew he was Italian, is how he was talking so much with his hands. And also he was speaking like physical Italian, like an actual language. And what's so interesting to me is who was standing in front of him was a woman and not his son. And she was doing the same thing, looking at him. She was looking at him saying, talking about her daughter, how could you betray me like this? How could you betray your own blood, your own mother? And she was really going off with that. And it felt as if something was getting to the end of its road. And all of a sudden, that Italian man, he finally said his last word and he stopped. And it looked like he took this big breath. And when he took a big breath, he looked around and realized, whoa, my son's not right in front of me. Where am I? He noticed that he was not where he thought he was. And then as soon as that happened, these two angels just appeared right next to him. And then he was gone, like they took him into heaven. But he had to fully release his feeling of betrayal by his son. And then the woman, I didn't get to see her go, but I know she was going to be going very shortly after too, because she was slowing down. I'm just in awe of all of this. And I'm trying to figure out how it all works. and I can feel this overwhelming love in all of it, that no matter what mistakes, no matter what misconceptions we have, that at the very least we will end up in one of these pearls, or what I think religion calls purgatory, one of these pearls where we will release what we have to release to get into our home, into heaven. And as we navigated past the mist, we came down and actually landed in grass. We weren't in some kind of spaceship. My feet were open to space, and Drake's feet were open to space, but somehow we were contained in some type of apparatus of sorts. But I wouldn't call it a spaceship. I couldn't see any walls. I couldn't see any buttons or machinery or displays. All I could see was what was moving around me. But as we touched down in this grass, I felt myself get really excited, like so excited, more excited than I'd ever been in my life. And this alone had opened up a whole new excitement for me, all of this. And as I got really excited, my feet came down and they touched the grass. And this grass was completely life-changing for me. The grass itself had light inside of it. And that's when I noticed that everything in this space, it was light. It was built of light. There was not some kind of outside light source shining down on it. The light was coming from inside of everything. And so I really loved feeling that love come from this grass. And I kept thinking, like, how can I be worthy of this? I can't. I don't feel anyone can be worthy of this love. And so I was asking the grass, but why me? And they kept answering the same thing, because you're you, because you are you. And it took me a bit to even understand that answer. I still don't quite understand how something could be so loved as what that grass loves us as. And I could feel in the grass itself, there was individual consciousnesses in each blade, and they were like giving applause and giving praise and giving loving praise that we were there. And I could feel that the grass had a flavor, that even touching it, you could taste the grass. And it had the most sweet, aromatic smell coming off of it. And that even in the smell that was coming off of it, you could see like iridescent colors. The whole experience there is so much more than what we have here. It's like there's whole senses that we have there that we don't have here. And as I'm experiencing just the grass, I literally am freaking out about the grass, because I feel so much love from it, and I feel so much love for it. And that's when Drake comes up to me and says, if you like the grass, you should see the flowers. And I really lost it. I was like, there's flowers? What? And he took me and he brought my consciousness and he put it on a flower. It was the coolest thing. He had me on the petals of a flower, and I was like running around. I could feel and see the light changing everywhere that I touched this flower. I could feel my vibration, my frequency changing just by the love of this flower. And just like with the grass, I could feel this supreme love coming from it. And I kept saying, but why me? Why me? And I would hear again, because you're you. And, you know, the universe looks at us as something very precious there. It does, just does. And, you know, I'm really kind of freaking out about the grass. And that's when Drake introduces me to trees. And I did the same thing with the trees. The trees feel like some type of sacred, intelligent being, like, way more intelligent than we are. And that these trees, they like slowly walk through earth. We see them as fixed and not moving, but they see themselves as like treading water and slowly walking, even in the dirt, in the soil that they exist in. And I'm, so connected to these trees and the wisdom, the collective wisdom of these trees. And that's when I noticed that there's this building off in a distance, and I see all these people going in and out of the buildings. I can tell for sure that this building is some kind of either school or hospital or both. And I'm really excited about it and wanted to bring my energy closer so I could see more about it. And that's when Drake, he came up to me and he goes, Vinney, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it. And when he did that, he put his arms around me and he hugged me. And for me, this was the closest thing to feeling God hug me. I could feel my Creator's love inside Drake as he hugged me and he held me. I could feel the most beautiful love coming from him. And, in the midst, I skipped over this part, but in the midst of being there in that heavenly realm, water had come and approached me, and I had let water come over me and then go back down onto the planet into its stream. And that was the most supreme amount of love I had felt to that point. But this hug that Drake was giving me was even more. It felt almost like 1,000 times more than even the love that the water was delivering, than the grass was delivering, than the trees or the flower was delivering. And I didn't know how to receive this love. I already didn't know how to receive the love from everything else. But you accept that it's there and you allow it to be where it is. But as his hug was like coming together in my soul, I could feel my soul and Drake's soul coming together and becoming one for a second. And I felt this very loud pulse of energy off the two of us. And I realized a simple principle in spirit anyway, that when two come together and work together and love, they are more powerful than 8. That there is a supreme principle in that when we can put 2 hearts working together, they're better than 8 working by themselves. And as all of this is happening, I then begin to hear in my ear my brother on earth giving a prayer to my body. He's giving this special blessing, this special prayer over my body. And as he's doing this, he's commanding my body to be made whole. He's commanding my soul to return to my body. And I'm resisting all of this. But when he says amen, I felt an instantaneous tug from my belly button area. I felt as if I was being pulled back into my body. What I didn't know is I had been dead. They had revived me, but I had been brain dead for 3 days. And so I was having all this wonderful experience while I was brain dead in the hospital. And this was the 3rd night that my brother was really afraid that I wasn't going to wake up. And he had not told my mother about any of this. And he was really worried about how she was going to react. And he gave me this special prayer. And when he finished, he left. He left the hospital room. But to me, it was instantaneous. I woke up. Now, in real time, what had happened is my brother had given me the prayer about 9:30 or 10 p.m. when, visitors were being sent home. And then I woke up at 1:11 in the morning. And when I woke up, I was extremely claustrophobic. I didn't want anything touching me. I got up out of my bed. I yanked all of the wires and tubes and hoses out of me. I was on full life support, so there was tubes going everywhere. And I pulled them all out. Even the catheter they had inserted, I pulled out. I pulled everything out. And then I just stood there naked in my hospital room, just standing there like, why can't I breathe? I felt as if I had an elephant on my chest. And so I just sat there and tried to breathe. And then all of a sudden my breath started coming in and I did start to breathe. And then I looked down and realized I was naked. And so I opened up the cupboards that were in there and I found a stack of like clean hospital gowns. And I grabbed a couple of them, wrapped them around my midsection, and then I left. I was ready to go home. I wanted to go straight home from there. I came out of my room and I saw an elevator corridor over to my right. So I just started walking. I booked it. I went as fast as I could without running necessarily. And I got to the elevator. I was hitting down when I heard a scream. And then I heard another scream. And then I look over down the hallway where I had just come, and two nurses had just come out of my room and looked in my direction. And when they did and they saw me, they screamed again, both of them. And at that point, I knew that if I left, they would be in so much trouble. And I did not want them in trouble. So I did come back. Now, for the next 6 hours, doctors were filing in and out of my room, asking me all sorts of questions. They took me down for more tests. They wanted to make sure that I was not going to go back into a coma. They didn't, they thought for a while that this was just a lucid moment. And then bam, I was going to go back into a coma and probably die. But it wasn't that. I was fine. I knew I was fine. And I finally convinced them of that. And I checked myself out at about 7:30 in the morning, that same morning. And that's where my story takes a different turn. You can imagine if you went through something like this, you would be very, very sad because you got to see what actual love is, real love that we have never seen on this earth. There has never been a love seen on this planet like the love that this simple blade of grass has for all of us. Now, the closest is going to be some of our religious figures, but even their stories and experiences are not even close to the love that this space has for us. And so I was extremely depressed, very depressed. I wanted to kill myself. I was done dealing with life, done dealing with all of this. And, Drake, he was still coming to me. He was with me almost every day for at least an hour or two. And some days he wouldn't leave me, especially if I had plans to do self-harm. He would stay by my side and he would keep reminding me, Vinney, things are going to get better. I told you it was going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And he kept saying that again and again and again. Finally, a few months after this all happened, I met Andrea, who is my wife, and she is and was my saving grace. She was what helped me want to stay here and be on earth longer. And it was her prompting that had me go to a family reunion a full 6 months after my experience. I was in this family reunion in this little town of Wyoming, and I'm watching the high school put on this play about the history of the town. And up on the movie screen comes these pictures of different founders of the little town and some of the first religious leaders to work in the town. And out of nowhere comes Drake. And it's his real picture. It was so close to how he looked to me. It was so eerie, because even to see the picture gave me ice cold chills down my spine. And I recognized his last name, but it said his first name was Charles. It did not say it was Drake. But I recognized the last name as my grandmother's maiden name. So I went directly to my grandmother. As happenstance would have it, she only lived about 2 miles away from this high school anyway. We went straight to her house. I came barreling through the front door, and I was like, Grandma, 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 tell me about this Charles man. Tell me about him, Charles Kazare. Tell me about him and his story. And her response was, I'll never forget it. She was in the kitchen, and she was like tinkering around in the kitchen. She shuffled out to the hallway, or to the causeway between the living room and the kitchen. And she goes, "Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake?" He was kind of famous in our family. And when she said that to me, I collapsed on the ground. I was weeping. I had a very hard time accepting my experience. I thought it was all an illusion. I thought it was delusion or illusion, one of the two. And I thought that I was just hallucinating when I would see Drake. But there I had physical evidence of who my guide was, number one, which he was my great, great, great grandfather on my grandmother's side. I had never seen his face a day in my life. And yet I knew him. I knew him better than I knew my own father at that point. I knew Drake. And I love that I had that confirmation, because it allowed me to, move forward in my life in a way where I could honor my experience. And that's what I've been trying to do ever since, is honor the experience and use what I learned in the experience and utilize that in the work that I do in helping others. I help others transform their life. I help others exit old habits, patterns, and beliefs, and embrace new habits, patterns, and beliefs. And in that process, you can watch a lot of healing happen in someone's life. And that's my experience. All happened in 2003, all of it. Bam. Yeah.
Wow, that is such an experience and so much detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to pick on one or two things, with that. So with coming back, did Drake didn't really say why. It was just that calling back to the body by your brother, right? He didn't, because it almost seemed like he was going to take you back home, right?
Yeah.
Which I guess we call heaven, right? But it didn't actually go in that direction.
Well, it felt like they were letting me see heaven, but not letting me stay. And I could feel that because Drake was giving me that warning even before my brother started saying the prayer. Like as soon as I was getting all excited, I was so emphatic about everything I was watching. And, I was that way about the grass and the flowers, the trees, even the water. And he saw me so passionate about all these things. And when he saw me see the building, he could hear the questions start flowing out of my mind. Because there we use, direct mind to mind conversation. We don't use our mouths. And so even having a thought, it's the same as making an expression or speaking, So he saw me noticing the building, and it was right then he kind of came around in front of me And he said, Vinny, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And that's when he hugged me. And it was in the middle of that hug, I started to hear my brother give that blessing. Yeah, that prayer.
What
So,
was it like coming back into the body for you after being out
oh,
for so long?
it feels as if, um, it feels as if they, going back into my physical frame, my human body, it feels as if someone's trying to take you, what size you are now, and force you into the size of a tuna can. It's like these bodies are so much smaller than our soul. Our soul is huge, truly huge. And to go back in my body, I was severely claustrophobic for the next 5, almost 10 years. Finally, in some hypnosis, I was able to release some of that. But wow, what a drastic difference in size between actual size of our soul and actual size of our bodies in comparison. Our soul is so much bigger. Yeah. Feels like our soul is a giant compared to our body. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. And so you weren't forced to come
Now,
back.
I had the ability to choose, but at some level, I did feel forced at some level. But in hindsight, I would go back and meditate and look at it. I knew that at some level, my own soul had allowed this to happen. So even begrudgingly, it allowed it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still go through periods where you miss being there, or have you kind of
Um,
resolved that and come to peace with it?
I do, but only on days that end in Y. So just on those days, which is every day. And I do. I yearn for it, but I also don't want to. I don't want to second guess or sabotage my joy of being here either. So I do strive to have joy for being here, have joy for being in this space, in this life that I'm in right now. Yeah.
Mm. And is it just focusing on the positive aspects, or how do
Oh,
you bring yourself
gratitude.
back?
Yeah, gratitude is the only way to get myself back. I go in and I'll use my mind and think, what if this is the last day I get to do this or get to do that? And in thinking like that, it sure helps me feel gratitude for it. And so, you know, every time I see a dragonfly, every time I see even a butterfly or a bird of any kind, I feel like complete gratitude that if this was the last one I get to see, I'm grateful I got to see it. If this is the last sunny day I get to wake up, I'm grateful for this sunny day. If it's the last stormy day I get to wake up, I'm grateful for the stormy day. But finding gratitude for what is allows you to raise your vibration to a much higher space. And in that higher space, it's much easier to be happy and much easier to be be kind of a tool in God's hands or in the universe's hands. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. And I've had a near-death experience and a lot of out-of-body experiences, and so I kind of understand the ups and downs with it.
Yeah.
Because there's times where like I just cry and I just want to go home and just be done with this place. But it's
Yep.
it's it's not always easy to bring yourself back into that in that space,
It's
and
not. It's hard. It's a process, and it's definitely very difficult. It is.
navigating to the life review where you talk about like the positive and the negative. We look at both sides. A lot of
Hmm.
near-death experiencers just talk about, what I did wrong, and
Yeah.
they don't really talk about that we get to see the positive of it too as well. So I
Yeah. The
love that you were
positive's
able to.
powerful. Yeah.
Now, did you do any healing when you came back? Like any like inner child healing or anything along those
So
lines?
yeah, I've been doing that every year, every week, every month, almost every day since I've been back. Yeah. I have been healing that inner child. I had substantial trauma, like severe extreme trauma from age 4 until 11. And so there was a lot of repairing and spackling to do, lots of cracks to patch up, even though the whole experience felt like it did that repair for me. I had to come back into the body, which the body had all that memory in it. So I've been working on that ever since. And I have good periods. I have rough periods. I had a period of almost 3 months ago where I became paralyzed. And it was because of my hara, or my HARA. That's the area of your soul body complex that holds childhood trauma, and specifically severe physical and sexual trauma. That's where we hold that. And I had to clear that out. I had to. It was time. I've been clearing it out for a lot of people over the years, and it was time to clear my own. Yeah.
What did you call that area where it's held?
It's called the hara. Yeah. So
Okay.
HARA. Yeah.
All right.
And it's essentially the root chakra up to the bottom side of your solar plexus. Yeah.
Where was the love coming from? And so when you say home, can people term that as like heaven? Is that
Yes.
same thing?
Yeah. Home and heaven, same place. It is where we came from before we came here. It is where we will go before we go anywhere else, if we go anywhere else. And we get to embrace as much heaven as we want. So if we want to embrace an eternity there, we get that. If we want only 1,000 years, and then polish ourselves off and go back out into another experience, we can do that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Now you did say we work really hard to come here. What are we working on before we come here? Is it the past lives, or is it both?
So we're working. The soul develops in so many different ways. It's bigger and harder for us to understand because we only think of it in the linear life and think of it as like maybe a past life. But here's the thing: we know for a fact we existed before we got here. We weren't just created for here. And so it essentially is the chronicle of our journey before we got here. Yeah. That's where we were able to lift enough weight, test ourselves enough to feel like we had a shot at Earth. Yeah.
Okay. So we're kind of learning things before we can come actually in and take this life.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we don't
Now,
show up here ignorant anyway. Yeah.
right. You got to have some background. It's like going to a job. You got to go to college to get some
Yep.
training, and then you go out into the world and go work, right?
Yeah.
Your journey with Drake on the other side, you kind of went into, like you said, the different like lessons, I guess you will. You came away with
Mm-hmm.
like 10 principles.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was 10 principles, but when we wrote the experience down, we saw that there was 10 very distinct principles. So yeah, it's 10 principles I learned.
And they're in your book. And where can people find the book?
So they can find the book on my website at livinggodslight.org. They can find it in the shop there. They can also find it on Amazon, Audible, wherever your books are sold. But yeah, even internationally, we are now selling on our website. So international was a hard one. Now we're doing international through our website and through part of Amazon. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then part of your purpose, because a lot of people or some people come back and they'll know their purpose. And so what you're doing now, helping people, is that part of your purpose?
It is. I'm here to be a healer, teacher, and someone that helps people activate their gifts, activate their tools to help others, that kind of thing.
Okay. And before your near-death experience, did you have an understanding of Source, God, or the
I
life before
did.
then?
I referred to God as the Heavenly Father before my experience. I feel like that downgrades what God is now, because God is so much bigger than a man or a woman or any one thing. God is this force, and it's a force of love that's that's like saying, let's gather all the love in the universe and put it in one name. And you really can't. That's why the name Elohim, which is like all of the all of the angels, that's what that means. Or um, the name Abwun, which is the Aramaic name for God. It means father womb. That it does feel more accurate to use that term, but even that does not translate as Heavenly Father. It's more Father, Mother, Creator of all things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it is hard to put it into to different like terms. I think for me, when I had asked, how can I relate to this and know when this energy or vibration is around me, is they gave me the sensation of a consciousness.
Yes.
And so I can, when I feel that, I'm like, okay, I know source is present within me, but I also can see like from a different observer. So it's like I have the awareness of like 360 in the body. So like I could be sitting on a beach watching the ocean and then have this observance come in and watch me watch the ocean, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really interesting. But I guess it's yeah, to term it God source, it's very limiting
Hmm.
to the expression of it, really. Now, if somebody was going through a rough time right now, and what can you offer to the audience?
Um, know that even if you're in the midst of a storm, the sunny day is coming. So take some deep breaths. Start feeling gratitude for the sun coming back out, metaphorically. And before you know it, the sun will be back out. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So feel gratitude for the future part of your life where you're not having that problem. And you actually physically bring it closer to you every time you do that.
Any other topics or anything you'd like to share before we bring it to a close?
Just that every single one of us, every single one of you that are watching, listening, understand this, that you are a divine masterwork, that the universe looks at you as this divine piece of creation that took the whole universe to conspire together to create. And that if it took the whole universe to create you, that means that you have the universe inside you. So be aware of that and know that that's a great responsibility, but also a great power to be used in and amplifying your existence here. Yeah.
Thank you. And where can people find you if they wanted to book a session or find out more about you?
Yeah. Just again, my website, livinggodslight.org. Again, that's livinggodslight.org.
All right. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing and for sharing your journey with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me and everyone listening. Especially if you're listening till now, you're in for the whole shebang. Thanks for listening and lots of love to everyone.